Hello, BookTube. I have another Irish stew video for you today, one of these portmanteau videos where I talk about a whole bunch of things that are attracting my attention. We can probably do a couple more of these before I disappear. And they will be structured, as always. The way we do these things is we talk about a story on the world stage, and then the United States, my own country, and then broader YouTube, and then BookTube, also my own country, and then finally me. For the world stage, we have an act of an open provocation of warfare. So the equivalent of shelling a building, the equivalent of setting fire to a hospital, an open slap across the face. One nation to another. What are you going to do? It's obvious that we want you to have an angry response and go to war, because we will certainly win. We want you to do that. That's obvious. So what are you going to do? It's classic schoolyard bully scenario. Classic mugging on New York City in the 1970s. And the aggressor nation, of course, is the United States of America under the authoritarian rule of Donald Trump. They attacked a Venezuelan oil tanker in Venezuelan waters and seized it. I don't particularly like the word seized, because it implies in a legal or a law enforcement sense, it implies that the tanker was doing something illicit or carrying something illicit, and that it was seized by law enforcement for that reason. That isn't true. This is just an open act of provocation of warfare. And as such, it is not a war crime, keep in mind, because we're not at war with Venezuela. No matter how many citizens of theirs, they have not declared war. And we have not declared war. So this is not a war crime, but it is a whole bunch of other crimes, because the crew and the captain of that tanker are certainly guilty of kidnapping, and I would argue, I would almost unconditionally guarantee that they are either now or will by tomorrow at this time be guilty of be victims of murder. This is a completely lawless authoritarian fascist regime. So they're not going to seize an oil tanker, seize the oil. Keep in mind, this is Venezuelan property that was simply stolen by the United States. But they're not going to do all of that and leave all of these witnesses alive. Everyone from the cook to the captain will be executed. Probably executed and just thrown overboard. But maybe not that, because then there's the possibility that the bodies would wash ashore. You never know. Forensics evidence can be amazing. Those waters are filled with sharks, but it's entirely possible that some body could wash ashore. More than likely, the route will be the same evidence-free route that the Trump regime has been using for almost the last year, which is to send these people to murderous concentration camps overseas, somewhere else, black rendition sites somewhere else, where they're outside of the law then. They're non-personed then. There are no lawyers. There's black mask over the head, so you can be liberally, extravagantly, recreationally tortured, and then killed and your body incinerated or dumped in a crevasse or something like that. So that there's no chance of accountability then, and there's no chance that the crew of that oil tanker is going to live, because this is a murderous regime. The larger questions that come from it are twofold. The Venezuelan government has already announced that the absolute bald truth of it, which is that this is an act of piracy, in addition to kidnapping and murder. I don't think they were going that far. I will happily go that far. There is no chance that Trump's thugs are going to let these people live, let any innocents live. They don't like civilians anyway. But the second thing will be all the nations in the area. Any nation really on the high seas. If the Trump regime can seize an oil tanker in Venezuelan waters and just take it and impound all, just commit theft, just steal all the contents, well, then they can do that to anything. Every nation in the world ought to think that. Every nation in the world with shipping on the open ocean ought to say, well, we're within range of a combat helicopter with a full crew of Navy SEALs from the nearest American aircraft carrier. We're within range. What if they want to take our hold full of oil or our entire deck full of shipping containers? What if they want to do that? That won't happen. that second reaction won't happen. The world will not have that reaction. The world should already be engaging long since in a very aggressive policy of boycott, divest, and embargoes. The world should not be doing business with the United States of America. Obviously, we are the definition, the textbook example of a rogue regime, and the worst rogue regime imaginable because we overpower all other regimes. So no matter who you are, if you're on the open ocean, we can take your property, kill the crew and captain, and that's it. That's all. What are you going to do? That second reaction won't be taken. The whole world is still just holding its breath and looking the other way. Like if we don't have any of the normal common sense reactions to the fact that the world's most powerful country has fallen to fascism, there's only one way that story ever ends. There's only one way that it ever progresses. So you already know. You just have to go with your kids to the local library and spend an hour reading to know that your hopes, the hopes of your government, that if we just look away and wait, things will go back to normal. You know that's not true. So why governments have not taken a more robust stance, I don't know. Maybe it's simply the same thing as why American politicians have not taken a more robust stance, because they're afraid of violence. This is a mob. This is a mafia, after all. American politicians don't take a strong stance because they're afraid that a guy in a rubber cop mask will show up at their front door with a claw hammer or a gun and kill them and everyone else in the house, including the dog. MAGA lawmakers are afraid of that, much less anyone else. And maybe other countries it's the same thing, that if we push this lunatic too far, he'll just declare war on our country through a tweet. But anyway, that is the big international story. Someone actually asked Donald Trump about it, and eyes 2/3 closed, slurring his speech, barely being able to enunciate. No wind comes past his vocal cords anymore. He talks like this, in a slurry voice. He mentioned only that it was the biggest tanker that's ever been stolen by another country. Because I guess he knows that 200 million Americans in his cult will like that. That will be a great thing for them. Hey, I don't know what to think about this otherwise, but I know that no one steals other people's property on a scale like we do. So yay, USA. I don't know what the long-term reaction will be. I'm hoping that at least one of the long-term reactions to this will be that there will never be a Nobel Peace Prize for this incredibly vicious warmonger. I'm hoping that will be. But then again, every member of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee has a home to go home to, with windows, with fake delivery guys coming to the door and having the door open for them, with the nighttime driveway. Every one of them has that. That's how the mob works. They don't do it by open conversion in the marketplace of ideas. They do it because you have a home address. So anyway, that is the U.S. or the worldwide story. And then the U.S. story, there are quite a few. Of course, the big one that affects the most people in the short term is this massive flooding in the Pacific Northwest. There was a massive storm system came ashore, and tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people are displaced. Record amounts of flooding. So the pictures and the stories coming out of there are pretty heartbreaking. It's again extra heartbreaking because they're not going to get any federal aid. Their states pay in for federal aid, and it is illegal to deny them federal aid for any reason. But especially when the need for the aid is obvious, it's visibly obvious, and yet they will not get aid because they didn't vote sufficiently for the boss. And he seems to think that he is in complete control of the dispersal of that federal aid. That is not true. Congress is in control of that. They're just going to let him do it. Again, because they have home addresses, and they're afraid. They're physically afraid. They're afraid for their physical safety and the physical safety of their children. If you're MAGA, that's the country you're living in. And no doubt you're happy with that. No doubt you're comfortable with that because you're on the threatening side. But those localities, these hundreds of thousands of people, they aren't going to get any federal relief funds at all. They might get state relief funds, so I'll have to hope for that. I'll be keeping an eye on how bad it gets and how long the prospect of recovery is. And then there are two other stories that epitomize the way the 100 million people in this country who are not Trump cult are looking at Trump cult. They are looking at it as something where this is too horrifying for me to think about. If I look away, much like international countries, if I look away long enough, it'll change back to normal. So I'm just going to deceive myself on that subject. Like, you need much help from the fascist-friendly mainstream media also deceiving you, actively deceiving you. A lot of people want to deceive themselves. And one of the ways that they do that is by looking at a story and saying an immediate disqualifier of that story, or a qualifier of it, somehow. I'm going to look at this story, and instead of assessing it in terms of the obvious reality that surrounds it, I'm going to put an optimistic spin on it. Even though that's not warranted, and even though if I kept my eye on the story for even another day, much less another month, I would see that my optimistic spin is wrong. There are two stories like that. The name Kilmar Obrego Garcia is probably known to you. He has been a horrible chew toy just thrown around by the Trump regime as the living embodiment of horrible immigration. And a U.S. judge has ordered his release from whatever illegal penal detention he is suffering. A federal judge has ordered the Trump regime to release him. There is no case against him that warrants incarceration. There's no case against him that warrants absenting from his family. There's no case against him, period. You must release him immediately. And the 100 million people in the United States who are not part of Trump cult are going to look at that story and say, good, all right, fantastic. A win for the good guys. About time that some judges fought back against all the stuff that's obviously illegal and immoral. Great. Now, honey, what's for breakfast? And that's going to be it. You're not going to check back tomorrow or the next day or the next month to realize that the Trump regime is simply going to ignore that order. They are not going to release him. They are going to ignore that order. Or, since they get off on cruelty, maybe they'll release him for an hour or a day, just long enough for him to see his family, but not yet get close enough to touch them. And then they'll arrest him again. Out of wanton cruelty. They know they don't have any case. They'll just do it. But the thing is that the ruling is going to be ignored. And 100 million people in this country are thinking, in their minds, when they think about all these illegal things that Trump did, I'm so glad that the courts just struck all of them down. Yeah, the courts struck all of them down. The courts said that all of those things were illegal. And the Trump regime has continued to do them. Federal occupying troops, militaries in U.S. cities, all of that had expiration dates. It's all still happening. People still being kidnapped off the street. Just, you can make the law, but you can't enforce it. And if the people think that there's this seesawing act of balance and counterbalance, maybe they won't get so upset that they march in the streets or conduct a general strike or whatnot. And the other thing, the other U.S. story, is much along the same lines. And it's a story that you might have seen develop this week, where the U.S. Border Authority has announced new vetting procedures for people coming into the United States, usually from our allies. This goes in line with the security strategy memorandum that they did, where what the Trump regime wants to do is invert the tenor, the nature, and the predictability of our allies and our enemies. The people who used to be on the enemies list are now on the allies list, and the people who used to be on the allies list are now on the enemies list. We hate them. We hate them. Because they stand, at least on paper, most of them, for the rule of law, for justice, for mercy, for accountability to citizens. And the Trump regime hates that. And they want to do away with that. They have largely already done away with that in this country, and they want it to be a distant memory that you're not allowed to voice, and certainly not allowed to write about. And in line with that, the Border Administration has announced that they will be searching your phones. You want to come to this country, they'll be searching your phone going back years. They want the names, the email addresses, the physical addresses of everyone that you know, everyone that you're associated with, all your family members. But they also want the passwords, the entrance to everything, all your social media, everything that you've done. That old email account that you don't use anymore, you'd better be able to remember the password, because we're going to want to look at all of it. Your old Facebook account, you'd better remember how to get into that account, because we want to look at it all. And once you're there in the immigration line, in the customs line, you can't say, oh, well, I didn't know about this law here. I will cancel my trip right here. I'll just go back to the lobby and wait for the next plane home. No. This is the same thing as the Patriot Act. Once you're there, the game's already over. If you refuse, they'll arrest you. Or maybe even not bother to arrest you, just take you. There are holding facilities in every airport, and thanks to the Trump regime, there are many more holding facilities, just anonymous black box rooms on site of airports and also directly off site, where you can just be taken. No one even knows where you are. No one ever will know where you are. So you're going to have to comply unless you decide ahead of time, knowing this, not to come to the United States for any reason whatsoever. Not for any reason whatsoever. So this is a variation on the rule, on the advice that I've been giving you for 9 years. You have all been ignoring it. We're coming real close to the time when, unfortunately, I would theoretically be able to say I told you so. I won't be able to because YouTube won't be a platform. But if it were, I would be able to say, I wish you'd listened. For the sake of your family, for the sake of your children, who will now grow up as slaves to the Trump family, I wish you had listened. This is the obverse of that, where now I'm telling people who aren't in the United States, don't come here for any reason. Your phones are going to be searched. Now, the Border Security did not clarify what they were searching for, and that's because if they had, this would have been a front-page story instead of a 5-page story. What they're going to be searching for is any criticism of the boss. Anything at all. Even a like on something on Instagram. They're going to be searching for any criticism of the boss. Not terrorist activities, not Palestinian affiliations, nothing like that. They're going to be searching for criticism of the boss. And if they find it, the most beneficial outcome will be that you will be told your trip is now canceled, go to the lobby and wait for the next plane back to your S-hole country, even if that country's France. That's the happiest outcome. The far more likely outcome is that you will be kidnapped and rendered to a death camp in El Salvador. And no one will know what happens to you. Your loved ones will never see you again. So don't come here. If you have plans for the World Cup, cancel them. If you have plans for World Cup adjacent events, cancel them. Instead of doing what I already see people doing. Professionals, and especially, unfortunately, academics, feverishly going through their social media for the last 3 or 4 years and editing things, deleting things. In other words, complying abjectly with an authoritarian regime before it even has a chance to ask them to. Rather than do that, rather than put yourself on the bad side of history as someone who complied with or enabled this fascist regime, you should just not come. Just change your plans. Don't come to America for any reason whatsoever. The Grand Canyon is not worth it. Don't come to America for any reason. It doesn't matter. If you think you're scrubbing your social media of anything critical of Trump, you won't get it all. And that's not even talking about, I can't believe I even need to say this. But I guess I do. Because it's not just Americans who are looking the other way. It's the international community that are looking the other way. They're saying, this can't be serious. This isn't real. Oh, come on. So I can't believe I even need to say this. I'm telling you, if you are listening to this from outside of America, don't come here for any reason. I don't care what it is. Don't come here for any reason. And obviously, I'm going to include a note here that I wouldn't think I would need to say, which is that if you don't have white skin and you're thinking of visiting the United States, you're insane. Absolutely insane. You have a death wish. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Avoid this country as long as you can. It won't be long. Obviously, if you look back to the story at the top of this Irish stew, you can see that it won't be long. You are vulnerable. Everyone is vulnerable. This kind of theft could happen anywhere. And also, I won't put too fine a point on this yet because it's going to be months before it's actually rolled out, I think. But a customs policy that says we're going to confiscate your phone whether you want us to or not. We're going to brutalize it. We're going to jailbreak it to get at all of your info. And if there's anything in there that's critical of the boss, you're going to be in big trouble. The best you can hope for is that you'll be sent back home with your tickets not refunded. And the far more likely instance is that you will be kidnapped You will be detained. You will be tortured. You may be killed. You'll be black-sided. That's more likely to happen. The subsequent point that I want to make, I don't have to make it yet. I think it will become much more obvious in the new year. Is that this isn't just for immigrants coming to this country, obviously. Obviously, this is designed to raise the temperature in the frog pot just a couple of degrees so that when it becomes time for it to be you, just you, in Wisconsin, in Northern California, in Southern Texas, when it comes time for it to be you, well, what about you? You're here at the subway stop. You're about to get on the subway and go to work. But we've got an informal check here. It's a bag check, sure, but it's also your phone. Hand over your phone. Let's take a look at the kinds of things you've been posting. This is obvious a run-up to that. Donald Trump has already said, he's said 3 times just in the last few days, that he thinks any criticism of him should be illegal, that it's treason, that it's sedition. And in the back of his tiny little lizard brain, when he says that, is death. The penalty for treason is death. He thinks that without any compulsion whatsoever. I would think if he were a normal person, you'd think he would shy away from the connection between high treason and death, considering that he stole top secret documents from the United States of America and sold them to the government of Iran and to the government of Saudi Arabia for $2 billion. Treason doesn't get any worse than that. He did that and is still doing that. He has thousands and thousands of top secret documents in his possession that he is selling off to Qatar, to especially to Saudi Arabia. He sold, years ago, Israel's nuclear profile to Saudi Arabia for $2.2 billion. That number will probably sound familiar to some of you. That's where it came from. That's what caused it. Not Jared Kushner's amazing investment wisdom. and so on and so forth. But anyway, the main story here is that if you've got people, if you're thinking about coming to this country, you should change your mind. Because it can only end badly. It's not like a Trump cult member in an immigration line, in a customs line, is going to say, it's a really busy morning. Yeah, I know that's the rule. That's the boss's rule. No, but I'm going to let you go. No, because they're part of a religion. And the number one tenet of the religion is he's always watching. Now that stemmed originally, as most religions do, this one was born in the real world. And in the real world, that tenet sprang originally from the fact that Trump watches TV. Lots and lots and lots of TV. When he should be acting as president, he watches lots of TV. So originally that tenet was he's always watching TV. He's watching the news programs when people show up to talk about him. But it transformed, in the religion, it transformed into he's always watching. So those border guards aren't going to say that. They aren't going to say, it's a busy morning, go right through. They're going to be sure that he's watching, them personally. And they also don't want 2 Trump cult members at their driveway at 10 in the night. So there aren't going to be any exceptions here. So you should not come here. I spent 9 years telling those of you who are in America that you should emigrate. You absolutely should. You are almost out of time. Emigrations have already been refused on ideological grounds. That has already happened. So where immigration officials at airports have told American citizens, don't think it's a good idea for you to travel. Stay here. That's already happened. The fascist-friendly mainstream media is trying to quash those cases, but that has already happened a handful of times. So you're almost out of time. You should leave. But complement to that is that if you're outside of America and thinking for any reason to come here, don't. Change your plans. The country is announcing that it doesn't want you. It wants only Trump cult members. So anyway, that is U.S. We can finish all the negative stuff and move on to YouTube. And I guess there is still negative stuff on YouTube, but it's so outlandish and admittedly funny that it's difficult. It's difficult not to just smile about it. Of course, it refers to Candace Owens. I've talked about her before. I've talked about her in the way that should have started and stopped all conversation about her, which is that she is an unbelievable moron. Someone who thinks the earth is flat. Someone who thinks that dinosaurs are fake and gay. That dinosaurs didn't really exist. And that all of those fossilized remains that we're finding buried down 60 feet in quarries were put there by the Chinese, I guess. I don't know. Or the Jews, maybe. She's a horrible bigot, but also just incredibly dumb. So there shouldn't be any reason to listen to her, no matter how big her podcast audience is. But in addition to being a horrible bigot and also being incredibly dumb, I think there's a strong argument to be made that since the death of Charlie Kirk, she has gone insane. I think there's a safe argument to be made about that. And her claims about the death of Charlie Kirk have only grown like fungus over time. I don't know that there is anyone in her orbit, and she has people that defend her ride or die. I don't know that there's anyone in her orbit that can actually articulate the full dimension of the things she has implied about Charlie Kirk's death. It's a number of different governments who were involved in multi-meeting planning sessions to kill this guy in public, in a setting where there was another person there, instead of just having him slip in his bathtub, which any of these countries have done 1,000 times, and he'd be dead, and that would be it. There would be no story. Instead of doing it this way that invites internet sleuths, or as I've heard people say, God help us, I heard Ian Carroll describe himself as a journalist. I wanted to throw up. Instead of doing it in a way that invites these internet journalists to raise bloody hell about it. And Candace Owens has just continued to do that. She has said that Turning Point USA, the organization that Charlie Kirk led, that they planned his death, that they were in on it. She's come up to and maybe right around the borderline of insinuating that Charlie Kirk's widow, the utterly insane widow of Charlie Kirk, was responsible, was involved, knew about it ahead of time. She has accused the Israeli government. She has accused the French government and their maroon shirts. She has accused the Egyptian government with their phantom planes. And all of that is funny to watch. I completely agree. I don't miss much of it. But it's gotten worse. It looks now, she is gone mentally. She is just lost mentally. No way back to the world. As I've mentioned, when you go down into the world of conspiracy theories, there isn't a way back. You can maybe come a couple of rungs up from the bottom of hell long enough for you to put on a shirt and have a job, but you don't ever come all the way back. And she has no responsibilities to the outside world. She's a multimillionaire married to a billionaire. So she has no reason ever to come back, and it's obvious from listening to her that she is not going to come back. Nothing at all. She's lost. And that insanity has taken an awful noxious turn recently, where it almost seems like she's using the death of Charlie Kirk, someone that she claims was a friend of hers. This is not how you react to the death of a friend. She's taking the death of Charlie Kirk and using it as a bludgeon. That, okay, I'm accusing this government or that government or whatnot of killing Charlie Kirk. My friend, she refers to as Chuck. She doesn't even say both the syllables of his name. She says Chuck. And lately, in the last couple of days, she has drifted towards, well, if anyone criticizes me, then maybe I'm accusing them, too, of killing Charlie Kirk. The way that this was exemplified just the other day was that she did a video, in the thumbnail of the video, and again, I'm sure that she is YouTuber enough to say, well, the thumbnail isn't me. Thumbnail is you. And if the thumbnail's a lie, the thumbnail is you lying. Little Miss Catholic. She did a thumbnail on a video the other day, yesterday, I think, where the question in the thumbnail was, who benefits from Charlie Kirk's death? And there was a silhouette with a question mark in it, but behind that silhouette, there were pictures of other people, one of whom was the far-right podcaster Tim Pool. So to her millions of followers, her thumbnail was saying Tim Pool benefits from the death of Charlie Kirk and therefore might be involved in the death of Charlie Kirk. And no sooner did she do that than Tim Pool's weird incel compound was shot at by somebody who drove by. So a prediction that I made a few Irish stews ago, I am going to double down on now. These people are all insane. They're all unconnected from reality. They all live in compounds. They all have independent FU money. They're not accountable to sponsors or advertisers or government agencies or apparently the law. Candace Owens should have been sued into oblivion 6 different times for slander just in the last month. Instead, people are being very kind to her because it's obvious that she's insane. The things that she's saying, it's obvious that she's insane when she's saying, I haven't figured out quite yet which military organization was in the crowd in all those maroon shirts at Charlie's event, but I will. I'm really close. Lots of military people have said to me, oh yeah, that's military. A whole bunch of college students in maroon t-shirts. Like I said, it is funny. On one level, it is funny, even though it's revolting. But I said a few Irish stews ago on this subject that this is not going to stay in the realm of grifter debate. All these people are heavily armed, and all of them are insane. Sooner or later, I would say sooner rather than later, this is going to spill over into the real world of people getting shot at or killed. All because this one young woman has gone insane. Now, whether or not she went insane because of grief, maybe she went insane because of grief, because she lost her friend in a horrific manner. I'm starting to think that it's getting to the point, long past the point, where that shouldn't matter. Something needs to be done about this, and no one is doing anything. No one is doing anything. She's just this rogue force out there, and if you say something bad enough about her, well, then she will accuse you of killing Charlie Kirk. Anyway, it's one of these times that I'm glad that this channel is totally unknown to the rest of YouTube, because I don't want to be accused of killing Charlie Kirk. I wasn't anywhere near Utah that day or any other day. Anyway, that is part of broader YouTube. But there's a far more bookish or book tangent part of broader YouTube that I will leave a link to. There's no way to link to Candace Owens because it's 80 million videos. Every grifter in the woodwork has come out to make money off this thing. She has made more money than any of them. This has made her unbelievably wealthy. Every crackpot theory that she comes out with has made her more and more unbelievably wealthy. But every grifter has come out, and even the non-grifters who are in this sphere have come out just to laugh. Because apart from anything else, apart from all the ick, it is funny. It's so insane that it's funny. And I admit, part of the humor is helped by the fact that all of the people in this situation, all the candidates for anyone, if this goes south and someone gets hurt, all the people involved here are the worst people in the world. They're all villains. They're all bad guys. So that adds a little to the spice of the humor. But anyway, elsewhere on YouTube, there's a show called Unsolicited Advice. A really good-looking Brit, a young guy, a tight cap of curly hair, who is one of these philosophy bloviators on YouTube. Long videos chasing word salad to no effect whatsoever, as all philosophy does. Just sort of what Alex O'Connor has become in his worst appearances, which is why it was so much fun to see them appear together on Chris Williams, because they were mutually fart sniffing, but to such an absurd degree that I had no idea what any of them were saying. I was actually waiting for one of the inbuilt commercials just so that I would have coherent English. This kid on Unsolicited Advice did a video on the subject of how the internet is hurting critical thinking. His video actually says that it killed critical thinking. And the first point that he makes is the way in which social media, especially YouTube, grabs your attention and holds it. That's all that YouTube wants, is to grab your attention and hold it. It is totally value-free. But there are ways to do that, and some of the ways to do that are to anchor the content in base emotional responses, which do undercut critical thinking. Base emotional responses like desire or envy, or especially, as Unsolicited Advice starts to say, anger. Anger is not critical thinking, but it will lock you into a video. If a video is trying to make you afraid or angry, you're likely to be paying attention to it longer than you should. And Unsolicited Advice goes on to make a lot more comments along those lines, but I don't know what they are, because when he was in the middle of talking about how hard it is to sift through the videos on YouTube, for instance, that are only trying to lock you into anger or fear or covetousness or whatnot, as opposed to the ones who are trying to convey information, he was right in the middle of starting to discuss that when he started trying to sell me something. A news app called Ground News. I don't care about it at all. I don't want him I don't want him to segue completely smoothly into a paid commercial. And I don't know how much Ground News paid him. So Ground News is about sifting your news for reliable, responsible reporting. Okay, so did he take that sponsorship because it aligns well with the subject he was already going to make a video about? Or is the whole video just vaudeville for his payday? I have no idea. I stopped watching. I am not going to watch a commercial, no matter how smoothly you segue into it. And I'm not going to watch anything after that because I don't trust anything after that. Now, why would I? Why would anyone? If you were talking to someone at a meal or on the sidewalk, and they were burbling on and on and on and said, yeah, it's really, really cold, which is why I have these Burberry socks. They are double knit weave. They are made in the north of France where they really know how to make. You would just take a step back. Physically, you would step back in utter, all-pervading distaste. I doubt you'd ever talk to that person again. I doubt you ever would. And if you did, you would start every conversation forever till they're old and gray with saying no commercials. But I don't think you would. I don't think you would bother to say that. I just think you wouldn't talk to them anymore. So I don't know what other points he was going to make, but I did wonder about the first point that he made. Before he started to sell me a used car, he made a point about anger, about the capturing potential of anger. And I wondered, when I see these sorts of things on YouTube, I always wonder about you. I always wonder what you think about it. Is that true? Do you find yourself rage watching things? Not this channel. Okay. I know there are about 30 people out there that I know of. The head count could be higher. But I know there are about 30 people out there who hate watch this channel. I don't know why you would do that. I really don't. But I know that that's true. But I'm not talking about this channel. I'm talking about other things. When you are doom scrolling, which Steve always tells you not to do. When you are watching something on YouTube that you're not interested in, which Steve is always telling you not to do. Don't come whining to me about how you don't have time to read. Okay. But when you're doing that, do you find that something making you angry will make you stay longer? I know a lot of people who would say just the opposite. A lot of people in the 21st century, especially in this last year, will say, oh no, if I get the sense that anything I'm watching is going to upset me in any way, I click off it. Again, except my videos. A number of you will watch a video of mine, even though you know it's going to upset you. But I feel certain the reason that you do that is because you know you like me and you know I like you. IRL. You know that's not fake. And you could walk a long time on the wilds of YouTube without finding anything that is genuine. So I have a feeling that's why. But you know what I'm asking. Other things. Do you click away from a video if you think it's going to upset you? Do you find that since the United States fell to fascism, you do more comfort watching than ever? Just explicitly, where I know this is going to make me feel good. I'd be curious to know that. I'd be curious to know how you respond to the rest of the points in Unsolicited Advice's video, but I don't recommend watching it, and I'll never know what that advice is, because who knows if he isn't going to break into, maybe there's some soap that he wants to sell me. Is your brain nice and clean? You know what I like for clean? Ridiculous. Absolutely gross. But then we can move on to BookTube. And for BookTube, I saw a few really good videos. For instance, Tim at Secret Fire Books had a conversation with Kevin Towle from Kevin Towle Reads. They talked about C.J. Cher's The Well of Shiuan, which is an old yellow-spine DAW mass-market paperback that has one heck of a good cover. Steve very much approves of the cover. And it's the second book in a series, so I don't, you would think that a conversation about it, a nuts and bolts conversation about it, would not be interesting, but I'm going to link to the video. I think you'll find just bookish conversation between two bookish people. That is just for me, that is a lot of fun, even if I don't know the book in question. So I'll strongly recommend it. And another video that I want to recommend is the Bookworm, one of our youngest booktubers. And he did a video, just a very simple topic, but despite how simple it is, oh my, I would listen to every booktuber do a video just like his on the subject of why I love to read, why I read. Oh, it was wonderful. And he made a lot of really, really interesting points, and they can't be easy points for him to make, considering his peer group. His peer group doesn't read at all. And here he is dedicated to it. So it will, those of you who may be wary, maybe you're a little doom and gloomy about the future of reading, well, I think there'll be readers. I mean, if he's any indication, and there are other young booktubers who are like that, then I think there'll be readers, which is, I'll leave a link to it. I bet you'll find it very interesting. Especially, I found very interesting the mentions of sin. I mean, I try to watch every video by every booktuber who exists, but I don't recall the Bookworm talking in explicitly religious terms before this video. I thought that was fascinating. Anyway, see what you think. And then there's 4/4 of the page. So with Secret Fire books, this is touch number 2 on FantasyTube. Maybe you could even say 3 because the Bookworm reads a lot of fantasy. But 4/4 of the page. I love his channel. Absolutely love it. I could listen to him talk forever. And he did a video on why certain books stick in your memory and others don't. And I thought that was fascinating. I largely don't have this problem myself. Books tend to stick in my memory fairly well. A lot of them, whether I'm interested in them or not, whether I'm passionate about them or not. So it's not as big a problem with me as it is with a lot of people I know. I know a lot of people who are diehard readers. And I will say to them, okay, well, you read... what's an example? We can do fiction or nonfiction. It's always the same. I will say to someone, okay, well, you read There by Tommy Orange. So there's one particular plot line that I'm being reminded of when I'm reading this new book. So you read that book and knew it. If I describe this plot line to you, we can talk about the similarities. And the person will say, I don't remember a single thing about There by Tommy Orange. I don't remember a single detail. I read it. I know whether or not I liked it, but I couldn't tell you the name of even a single character. So I've dealt with this subject a lot in my reading life, and I thought his discussion of it was fantastic. Oh my. The video starts with an unconscious laugh too, because he's filming outside and he's filming in a little brook, and there are ducks. In the opening of the video, there's a duck just floating there on the water. And as he's getting himself all set up on the side of the brook, he's saying, I love a live duck. I love a dead duck that I eat. And then the duck goes away. He seems momentarily put out by that. I thought nothing makes more sense than that the duck would hear that and go away. But then more ducks come later on in the video. And he talks about the different factors that go into what makes a book stick for you. We'd like to think that it's just the writing. But no, he's suggesting that in many cases it could be the circumstances of your life, the comfort of the surroundings, and that, again, made me immediately curious about you, about whether or not this is true of you. First of all, how big a problem do you have with recalling details of books that you read? That's, of course, a standing question anyway, but more than that, do you find that factors like the kind he describes in his video, I'll leave a link to it, you should go and subscribe to all these channels. They're all worth your time. But do you find that the factors that he's talking about, environmental factors, mental factors, do they play an active role in how well you remember the interior contents of a book? I wonder if that's true for a lot of people. I thought that was fascinating. Just fascinating. So anyway, that is BookTube, and then we get to me. We'll wrap up with me for a very long Irish Stew video. And for me, the question here is a man cave. I mock the idea, but nevertheless, I have a pretentious den. I have a pretentious male study. I am suffering from PMS. I have a pretentious male study. It is a little room. It has a bed in it, but the bed is kind of small. It's the size of a couch. It's an old bed. So most PMSs have a couch in them, something like that. And it has a chair. Thanks to David Murphy's last visit, it has a chair. A very nice chair. Nicer than I thought when I saved it from, a Savers for $8. It has some plants. It has a window. And it is lined with books. Every inch of wall space that can be covered with books is covered with books, except for the upper part of the wall space directly next to the top of the bed, because I thought you could extend the bookcase all the way up to the ceiling there, but it would bother you because if it falls then, it falls on you. But aside from that, every inch of that room is books. And it has in case needed, it has a heavy black curtain, the sister of this one. And these heavy black curtains aren't just good at blocking out light, they also trap heat. I didn't buy them that way, but that turns out to be something that they do. I looked them up online, which means that if I take my little baby Bean, who's, again, she is wedged next to me here, like that. If I take my baby Bean and I pour her onto the bed, and she curls up into a tight little ball with her nose right underneath her hind legs, and I turn on a little space heater in that room and set it to oscillate, between the door being closed and the insulation power of all those books and the insulation power of that curtain, that room will become a cozy, book-lined little den, a man cave. And lately, I have been feeling the pull of that room like crazy. Ordinarily, my routine is that I leave that room to go about my day, to come to the fainting couch, even to go outside, to put on pants and do errands. And that room is always there. It is the anchor. I go back there to recharge my batteries. But lately, I've been feeling like just staying there. It's been a struggle not to. And again, I wonder if you have made a space like that. I know a lot of you have book nooks or book rooms that you have worked hard to build exactly to your specifications. That little room is now exactly to my specifications. It has a place to sit, and it has a place to lay, and it's covered in books. What about you? When you have a space like that, of course, I've urged you to have a space like that. Work hard to make one. Almost any living environment will produce that. Maybe not a dorm room, but almost any other living environment, there will be a nook or a cranny that you could transform if you put patient effort into it. And it's good for you. It really is good for you. But when you have such a space, do you ever feel like maybe you just want to live there? Like maybe you want to take even your meals there? I've never felt it this strong before. I don't know if it's just the addition of a chair, or maybe it's that the room is finally set up exactly the way I've always wanted it. I've been moving things around in there for 20 years. I think now it is just the way I want it. And maybe that's the reason, or maybe it's the end of the year. But that is the Steve part of the program, is me and my man cave, me and my pretentious male study. So I want to hear from you, especially if you have such a spot. Do you ever feel drawn to it, and maybe to an unhealthy degree? But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now. God help us, this has been long enough, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.